The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report with Dom Knight here. Charles is still in the UK. This is part 2 of our Olympics wash-up wrap with John Delmenico, editor of The Chaser. There's so much to discuss from Paris 2024 that we thought we'd break it into 2 halves. So part 2 coming your way in just a moment. It's going to feature Snoop Dogg and a lot of other randomness from the past 2 weeks. But hey, it's better than talking about Australian politics, isn't it? Okay, so of the performances, who caught your eye amongst the many Australian medals? I still can't quite believe we're 4th on the table.
Yeah, it's crazy.
At the end of it all.
I think as well, genuinely just the women is still very high on the table. Because
there were some bizarre metrics. 13 of the goals, of the 18 goals. At one point, I saw a post from Griffith University saying that Griffith University was 9th on the medal table or something. So it's been an incredible performance. And I mean, I've always thought that the game should stop at the moment when the swimming ends. I don't think we should have the second week with the athletics. I think it should really just be swimming and other water sports, the rowing, canoeing, maybe a little bit of cycling too. But I don't like the athletics, the track and field as a rule.
I think we can also, for the Brisbane Olympics, we should just do swimming, but then also allow the Matildas to play.
Yes.
Specifically just swimming and the Matildas.
I mean, the Matildas, that was one disappointing aspect of the games. Given that, we were sort of forewarned given that they barely qualified, but a bit of a worry.
They subbed out the coach, and in honour of his coaching style, they waited until it was way too late to make that sub.
Yeah, yes, that's true. They did, and without Sam Kerr, it's unfortunate. So we do need to get onto the cloning, please. If you could just, please. Either that or she could just coach them next time. I mean, maybe that's the solution.
Or they could try playing strikers in the first half of the match, which they did not do in any
shots.
of the games, and then surprisingly didn't score goals. Who knew you needed the people who score goals to score goals?
Well, I'm hearing they're building the team around Mary Fowler going. So that'll be good because she's got her own Barbie. And so there's no way that won't pay
We should
off.
copy the Canadian tactic. I don't know if you saw this, Dom. When New Zealand was training for their game, they noticed a drone over their head.
Yes.
And then they accused Canada of filming them. And Canada said, we are sorry for using a drone to record your training session twice. Which then
they admitted to it?
They admitted to it, and they said they did it twice. New Zealand didn't know they did it twice. They didn't accuse them of doing it twice. So in their apology, they admitted to doing it an extra time.
They're way too honest. That's why they never win things. You can't win like that. You can't have this sort of industrial scale cheating. Now, did we ever get to the bottom of the Chinese swimmer who broke the 100 metres record by like a second? Because that was, there were questions, weren't there?
People said, immediately Australia came out and was like, oh, that's faster than humanly possible.
Yeah. It's not often that in 100 metres you shave a second off the time. Was he one of the ones who they eventually said, he had a meal and that's why he tested positive? Or was that might have been one of the other swimmers? I don't want to defame anyone by suggesting they were taking improper substances, but I think some of the swimmers at some point had tested positive and it had all been explained by a meal that somehow tested positive for, steroids or blood doping or something.
Oh, yeah, he was one of the people. I've just Googled it.
Amazing fact-checking we have here in real time. Take that, Joe Rogan.
And it's just a reminder to me as well of how ugly the news.com.au website is.
Yes.
While I'm trying to figure out what happened.
Sorry to make you go to that. But it does make sense that if you wanted news on the games, you'd go to a site other than a Nine newspapers site. Because the fact that their journos were on strike for the first 5 days of the games is one of the things I'll remember for a long time.
I loved it so much because, Channel 9 was very confident that they did not need the journos. And then immediately it went to shit.
Yes.
The first day, everyone was like, it's weird that it's not journos talking about it. Instead, it's Carl Stefanovic and the guy from The Block.
Yeah, and Mark Taylor, of all people, who can barely commentate currently on cricket, let alone, I think they got him to do, the diving or something?
Yeah, they also sent Chip Legrand to be the on-field reporter. For anyone who doesn't know who Chip Legrand is, he is the chief Victorian politics editor.
Yes.
He's never done sport, and he's mainly just went there and was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Here's some transphobia. And then just spent a week posting transphobic articles every day.
But as against that, clearly not a member of the MEAA union.
Yeah.
So you can always get a sense of who the non-union journos are at times like that.
My favourite thing was...
But hey, you got a trip to Paris out of not being in the union, presumably. I'm just making assumptions. I don't know for sure.
He was in the union.
Google it yourself.
Because my favourite part of the story was about him, which is where it got leaked that Bevan Shields tried to be like, oh, come on, guys, don't make it scabbing that if for people to break the strike to cover the Paris Olympics, we sent them all the way there. And he tried to manipulate the strike into allowing the union members who flew over to Paris to break the strike.
That's bizarre, given that the entire purpose of the strike was to hit them when they were covering the Olympics, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing that former ABC boss Ida Buttrose condemned, because she put out this weird statement. She was like, I think it crosses the line to do it at the time of the Olympics. And it's like, yeah, no, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. You want to hit them at the moment where you're proving that you're needed the most.
I'm just looking at Chip Legrand's work here. And look, I don't know whether he's part of the union or not. I don't want to make any calls on that. But the number of articles he had to write during the Paris Games, I mean, he's done dozens of them, John.
Yeah.
They could presumably get rid of the whole Melbourne newsroom and just keep Chip Legrand doing his thing.
Yeah, well, no one wants sports reporters covering the sports anyway. They give all these facts and figures and they know what they're talking about. Everyone knows the best journalists in the country are the ones who cover politics.
And then weigh in on boxing.
Yeah. My favorite thing about the weird thing about the Channel 9 specifically in how heavily they leaned into the transphobia, including bringing in writers specifically to write those articles, is that they're also the ones who condemned the transphobia. They put an article in wow, the media is so disgusting in how they've covered women's sport. And it's that's you. Before they bookended that article with two other articles running the exact same lies and misinformation. And it's you can't be okay, no, everyone should send hate to this person. Also, it's really bad people sending hate. Now back to saying go back to the hate.
John, I think there's a lesson for you here as editor of the Chaser website. What you need to do is ferment anger over on one side and then criticize the anger on another side. It's it's a closed loop.
Yeah.
That's what you need to get into. You need to get into being able to condemn yourself to make life easier.
Yeah, we do have this weird thing that most other Aussie outlets don't have, where weirdly, because we're the satire outlet and we focus less on spreading lies, and that's why we don't get the clicks anymore.
I think that's a shame. I think you need to revise your business model. So there's a lesson for you in all of this. To create a scandal, then condemn the scandal, and maybe the Shot can partner with us on that.
The Chaser Report. News a few days after it happens.
All right, so look, at the end of all of this, what else are people talking about? I mean, the thing we haven't touched on yet, which is not something you normally cover during the Olympics, but it did seem to be one of the biggest stories of the entire Games, was the presence of Snoop Dogg.
He was great. Genuinely very good at commentating. I don't know if you've seen his commentary of the equestrian, but he didn't know what it was, and he just started ranking the horses by how well they were crip walking.
Yeah, I mean, I love that it's sort of it's almost a parody of itself, but then it's actually genuinely entertaining. This is the thing about Snoop Dogg. You could get him to do anything, and it would be entertaining. And this is what we need. We need people to cover the Olympics who are just inherently amusing or cool or different. And that way it doesn't matter. It can be something as boring and really in many cases as sort of concerning in terms of welfare as a horse-based event.
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg, you don't have to worry about it. I mean, they should do this for war crimes trials. Get Snoop Dogg to report on it, and we won't worry about it anymore. It'll be fine because he's doing something entertaining and talking about the Crips.
It is weird that America sent Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart and some other comedians over to cover the Olympics as their personality hosts. But we were smart enough to send Carl Stefanovic. Well, who wants Snoop Dogg when you have Carl? He is our Snoop Dogg if Snoop Dogg was awful.
I'm just trying to think of what they got in common. It's a Venn diagram that does not overlap very much.
It's just the drugs.
Snoop Dogg.
It did genuinely make me a little bit sad to watch the NBC coverage, where at one point they crossed to Colin Jost, who was there on holiday, and they're just oh yeah, they paid for my trip, so here's some sport, I guess. And it was really funny.
Yeah, and then didn't he get sacked?
Pardon?
Yeah. Apparently they then got rid of him. I was reading the other day. So I think this is progress, John, because what this tells us is that NBC, after many years of covering it as though it was a serious event, which it is in some disciplines, I'm sure. I mean, obviously the Americans are deeply invested in the Dream Team and all that. They now realise that the Olympics is so ridiculous that you should cover it with Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart and other comedians. I think that's something Australia should really work on. Yeah. I think acknowledging that things are ridiculous at the beginning is it's a very modern and sensible idea for the media to do.
But then also, if we do that, then we wouldn't have what Channel 9 did, which is instead of paying journalists, they all had like fancy dinners with the boss.
That's true.
You can't fly over the boss of Channel 9 to have fancy dinners with all of his friends if we're going to say it's a silly event, because that makes it no longer a business expense, Dom. That's what the Olympics is all about, is rich people getting to have caviar while everyone else does some sport or whatever.
Rich people be getting to go to Paris for a business write-off. Look, it sounds good. Finally, John, the LA Games I see today has promised to be car-free. Now, wouldn't say I know Los Angeles well, but I've been there a couple of times, and it seems to me that unless something's changed, you can't move 1 meter in Los Angeles unless it's by car. I don't think they do streets that you can walk on, and there certainly isn't any public transport. What's the plan? Are they going to ferry people around in drones or something? Is Elon Musk's boring company going to put tunnels everywhere that they need to go?
I mean, it is funny that they're like, oh yeah, because our traffic is so bad, we need to avoid using cars. As if there isn't a reason the traffic is famously terrible.
Whoops, this is something we can't control. Oh no, there's cars everywhere ruining the city. Who knew?
I mean, it is nice that they also figured this out 4 years out. I'm sure that America in particular will be able to bring out a very good public transport system that works well and is ready for such a large thing in just 4 years' time.
Sure. Oh, look, they can get the Sydney Metro designers to do it. That'll go down pretty well. But look, it is true that traditionally speaking, games administrators do get rid of the uncomfortable thing. No, they do get rid of poor people. They get rid of rough sleepers. They ship them out of the city generally is how they deal with it. China even tried to get rid of rain, didn't they? Didn't they seed in the Beijing Olympics? They had sort of silver going into the clouds to try and stop the rain from coming. So I guess getting rid of cars in LA, that's a genuinely huge challenge. By the same token, should the Brisbane Olympics commit to being bogan-free in 2032?
At that point, though, what's the point of having it in Brisbane at all?
Yeah, that's true.
We should have...
the streets would be empty.
They had Celine Dion at Paris. We should have Bob Cutter. Just put Bob Cutter...
Oh, my
Don't
gosh.
tell him that it's the Olympics or anything. Just put a microphone on him and he'll give a performance.
Absolutely. And I think the way that we light the cauldron is that he takes his enormous hat off, it bursts into flames, and that's it. That's the cauldron. I think we've solved it. We've made a lot of progress. Well, look, it certainly gave us something to talk about for 2 weeks, John. Now back to the misery of Australian politics for the Chaser, hey?
Yay. I tried to look at the politics of the last few weeks, and the biggest thing was that Barnaby Joyce said the word bullets, which people tried to make it into a massive thing, but who cares?
The Chaser defending Barnaby Joyce. There you go. No, it's true. I tuned back in with Sammy Shah for an episode a little while ago, and we tried to look at Australian politics, having thought a lot about the US and everything else, and we just couldn't do it. I think we might have been finally broken by Australian politics. It finally won,
I was reminded today, because I went to the shops, that in Canberra we're having an election soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I found out today because there was a politician at the shops. And
oh dear.
And that was crazy because that's how I was reminded that the ACT Liberal Party still exists.
Okay, there you go. Breaking news from Canberra. There's still a Liberal Party, technically speaking, at least in the ACT. John, thank you for all the work from you and the team during the games. There's some very good headlines on the site, and we'll catch you another time.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Our gear is from Rode. We're part of the Iconoclast Network. Speak to you soon.